G'day guys, thank you for watching this video. I've recently been commissioned by a hip-hop artist based out of Japan called Eto. Eto is a super cool guy. He's previously commissioned me to do some animation work for him, which you can watch here. If you're interested, I'll also put his links in the description. But yeah, he's commissioning me to do a piece of cover art for his new single, which is super exciting. And I thought I would make a process video. The cover art had to be 3000 pixels by 3000 pixels at least 300 dpi. This meant making it a perfect square. Next, I needed to know what to put in the square. So I sent some correspondence to Japan through the advanced technology known as email. And I asked Eto, hey mate, what do you want me to do here? And so Eto got back to me.
Hello, Nick.
And he basically said, beaches, palm trees, Super Nintendo Fantasy Monster Land. Too easy, or so I thought.
Dun dun dun.
I don't know, just adding some drama, okay? So, first I needed thumbnails. Send Eto some thumbnails and wham bam, thank you ma'am, I could get started. And these were as rough as they come. I basically mashed figure studies and drawings from reference together in order to generate some ideas. Oh, and I tried to compose according to the composition rule of thirds. I think pretty clearly I still have a long way to go when it comes to composition. So now it was all up to Eto. What thumbnail would he choose?
Dun, 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 dun.
Great. So next, I set about putting together a formal rough draft. This would need to be sent to Eto again for another round of approval. This largely involved me tracing the thumbnail while adding extra detail from the various references I was using, and a little bit of creativity too. So here I made the decision to give my giant Wolfie some giant sunglasses to set him apart as the cool doggo that he is. This involved pulling out the old perspective box. In the end, I don't think the box was too accurate, but hopefully I did enough to fool the average viewer. Putting together my favorite part were the pockets of water in the Skull Island eye sockets. And now I needed to flesh out our main character, Eto. I used this photo as reference for his face and constructed his body based on some reference that I shot myself. The shirt came straight from my dome, and that probably explains why it got so many revisions over the course of this commission process. This cave woman-esque assailant was a little more difficult. The top half was basically just a figure study, and so I had good reference for that pose. However, her lower half had been completely modified in order to have her sit on the Wolfie's nose. Here, I also decided to add this little coconut companion, who in my headcanon is seeking revenge on Eto for drinking from the skull of his little friend. And of course, given my country of origin, I could not resist the inclusion of a giant roux. And this was the rough that I ultimately sent to Eto for approval. Ring ring! Oh look, another email! It's Eto, and he's flaming mad. Not really, but he did request that I change the girl taking a selfie with the roux back into the camera lady and fantasy her up a bit. In retrospect, this was a really good suggestion, as both were leaning on the reference a little too heavily for my liking. Okay, so off camera, a shift to 6000 pixels by 6000 pixels occurred, and I finished the final line work. At this stage, I know generally where I want the light to be coming from, and so I just block in some dark values to indicate the shadows. This is my favorite part of the process. It allows me to show a good amount of 3D dimensionality without having to delve into messy color. And honestly, I'd be happy to leave it at this point. The satisfaction only goes down from here on. However, this is not a commission for half a job, and so I press forward with the coloring. Again, I try to pick some colors that work well together and stick to them as much as I can. Here, I have to fight my caveman instinct to paint those palm trees green. At this point, I have a sense for a lot of the colors that I'm going to use in the final version. But because I'm addicted to indecision, and because I don't have the greatest sense for what colors are working and when, I'm constantly second guessing any decisions I make, and it's exhausting. Here's a look at some of the greatest hits. It was super important for me to get the wolf slobber looking nice, which was actually pretty simple. I just filled it with a darker version of the background and then added highlights on top. And here was where I made the major decision to get rid of the little lifesaver that was floating there the entire time. Blech. At this stage, the drawing was so complete and many of the layers were merged, so it was just quicker and easier for my mind to patch over the top of it with water. Okay, so I know that was a big jump. The reason is mostly that my TV Paint file was getting very large, and the more of the process that I recorded, the larger the file got. Really, it was just hours and hours of texturing, adjusting the saturation, in particular in the water, adding some highlights in the wolfie's mouth, completely overhauling the sunset and clouds, and my most proud amendment, the cave woman's face. So lastly, we needed to decide where to put the song title and his logo, which is a super cool logo. Look at this thing. My first idea was to have the logo and title on the Wolfie's tongue, and I had some options as to how dark we wanted to go in the shadows. Next, I thought maybe we could move the title in Japanese down into the sand, or squish both into the bottom right corner. In the end, we went with a classic top left, bottom right combination. And that's everything I've got to say about this commission process. Thank you so much if you watched this whole thing.